Hello and welcome to A6 Studios. I just wanted to make a couple tutorials here on Photoshop. I know that some people have been asking me on how to use Photoshop, so I think whether you're in a band or you're in a business, the cost of changing around a logo or changing around a picture could get pretty costly, so I think it's a good idea to do at least some of it in-house. So what I'm going to do is create a series of about 5 little tutorials on how to get started with Photoshop, and then it's up to you to mess with it and really figure the rest out. But as long as you get the concept, I think you're good to go. So this is the Photoshop icon. You launch that, and this is your home screen before you have anything put on the page. You could get Photoshop through the Adobe.com website, and you could either buy it individually or you could buy it in the entire pack of all their programs. You can get the Creative Studio, which I subscribe to, and I absolutely love it. There's really nothing that you can't do on a computer with all the tools that they offer. But anyway, with Photoshop, the number one thing you need to realize is when you're getting started is everything is done in layers. So what I mean by layers is if you have a stack on a piece of paper, if you dropped 5 pieces of paper onto your desk and you looked at them and you stacked them on top of each other, that would be 5 layers in Photoshop. So I'm going to create our first layer right now. I'm just going to go New Project, and I'm just going to call it Layer 1. As you can see here, it's transparent. Okay, so it's like a transparency, like a piece of paper that's a transparency. And in here you have your resolutions and your width. So just to switch this over to inches so we can see exactly what we're working with, I'm going to create a picture that's 12 inches by 12 inches, and it's at a resolution of 300 dpi. You want to stay around 300 dpi because when you print it out, that's actually life size, and if you needed to send something out to printing, they would want it in 300 dpi, so it's nice and clear. When you're creating images for the web, however, if you're making a website, those images you want to do at about 72 dots per inch. And the reason is you don't want the resolution too high on the images that you're creating for online because you want them to load quickly when people do go to your website. So it's just a rule of thumb that everything's around 72 dpi and 300 dpi for printing purposes. So let's create our first page here. Boom. Now we have a transparent piece of paper that is 300 dpi. We're going to create some text on here, and we're going to write test. Okay, so what we have now is a layer that is transparent that says test on it. So if I was to save this and I wanted to save it as just test, actually cut out around the image itself, you would want to save it as a .gif file or a .png file. If you were to save it as a JPEG file, it would save the entire square, would render as white, and then it would say test on it. But if you saved it as a PNG, you would save not the transparency because it's transparent, but you would save just the test that's around it. You may, you might actually, when you save it as a JPEG, you would probably it could save the borders here, but if you were to load it onto a web page, this background would not be here. So let's just test that real quick. We're going to File, Save As, and it's not a Photoshop file. We're going to save it as a PNG file, and we're going to call it Test. Okay, Test PNG. I'm going to save it to my desktop here. Save. Okay. I'm going to get out of here real quick. And where'd we go? Okay, so we're over here. So yeah, it did save the entire background and test, but it's clear. There's nothing here. There's nothing in this area. That's why it's gray, because this is the background of this Apple program here. So it's just test, but the borders saved with it too, which is pretty cool. So you can get rid of those borders if you wanted. You just make your background transparency smaller. So let's add another layer here, a new layer, layer number 2. Boom. I like to do them in transparency, but you could also have your layers in anything you want. So if you wanted to open your layer up as a not transparency, whatever, a white background or a black background, whatever you want, we're good to go. We're actually going to take this layer right here, this next layer, and we're going to draw some stuff on it. All right, we go over to our little paint tool over here. And here's the colors. It's black, so we're going to make a black background. Everything's black there. So now comes into play the layers. So as you see, you got one layer here and test on the bottom. If you had two pieces of paper, one piece of paper that was a transparency that said test, and one piece of paper that was black because we just colored it in, and put them on top of each other, this is what you would see. But if you moved it, you can move these layers, boom. Now test is actually on top, but the problem is I made the test colors in black. So what we're going to do is highlight the test colors, and we'll make it white so we could see. Okay, see, I didn't get the T in there. White. T. Okay. And again, what you see is you got your test, and you got that, and your bottom layer there. So that's the first tutorial about how to mess with layers. You could also grab this thing, move it wherever you want. But next video, we'll get into a little bit more about cutting.